The Carolinas Golf Association has a new executive director, Jack Nance. The man who's been in charge for over 40 years has stepped aside, and Andy Priest has come on board with the CGA. He joins us next on Paradise in the Pines. Welcome to Paradise in the Pines, a podcast about the people, places, and stories that make this the home of American golf. Brought to you by the Pinehurst Southern Pines Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. And welcome to another edition of Paradise in the Pines. This episode, we've got Andy Priest here. He's the new executive director for the Carolinas Golf Association. We got the memo here with the vest, so the CGA logo looking good. Welcome.
Thank you, Phil. Great product placement already. So
Right.
well done. So we'll get you even more gear.
Well, we certainly welcome you back to the home of American golf. You were here before. Talk about stepping back into this role and filling the shoes of Mr. Jack Nance, who big shoes to fill after 40 years.
No doubt about it. And, certainly a great friend, a mentor for me and for so many for so long. So it's really, the honor of a lifetime to get the opportunity to come back, home. Not only to home American golf, but this is actually home for me, being from down the road in Raleigh, and the Priest part of my family from Moore County as well.
Oh, really?
My grandmother lived in Southern Pines, right on Ash Street. So when I was coming down here as a kid, Grandma's house was in Southern Pines, and she worked at Walmart as a greeter and worked at Granny's Donuts, and my granny actually worked at Granny's Donuts. So how about that?
Very cool.
Yeah. So this is really a thrill for me, and just truly an honor.
Talk about the process getting back here. You were down in Alabama. We'll talk about that. But when you saw that Jack was going to depart, I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of people that applied for this position. It's, CGA is no joke, and second largest association in the country, golf association. So what was it like having the opportunity to think that maybe you could come back to your roots?
Well, Jack and I, we've been staying close in touch for years and years and years. But even going back, my previous stint here at the CGA, that, we felt like at some point I'd be able to maybe have a chance to come back. And I felt like, 9 years ago, we were having a conversation. It's either, do I stay, as the number 2 at the CGA and kind of continue what I'm doing here, or do I golf on my own? Go to Alabama and lead that organization in the Southern Golf Association, kind of learn how to be an executive director and take a program and turn it into your own. So that was really the crossroads for me, and my wife too, Tiffany. She was our director of women's golf at the CGA for 14 years. So this was a major life decision for us to just pick up home and everything that we knew here to move to Alabama, and it was the best decision we could have made. Ultimately, it was a challenge, certainly, to go to a new place and really know many people. But I can say this, that the folks in Alabama are just phenomenal, so good to us. And I think in the back of everybody's minds there that there might have been opportunity for me to come back here down the road, and just fortunate that the process ended up with me and being the guy at the end of the day. But you're right, it was very competitive. Our board hired Korn Ferry, national search firm, went through a process. I will say I may have been the first one to have their resume and cover letter in to them from what I was told. So I was ready to go. Yeah. I felt good about my chances. I felt like I'd between relationships here and experience here, and obviously all the experience I gained being in Alabama, that I'd have a really good chance to lead this great organization.
Well, you talked about Granny and her roots here in Southern Pines, but you grew up in Raleigh. Talk about growing up there and getting involved with golf, and you actually played baseball at Campbell.
I did, and it's funny how a washed-up baseball player becomes executive director for the Carolinas Golf Association. And growing up, my dad worked at NC State. I grew up downtown Raleigh pretty much.
Okay.
My mom was a school cafeteria manager, so my mom was a lunch lady, so, very, very much middle class upbringing. In the middle of 3, I got an older sister and a younger brother. I had the greatest parents in the world, and, not with us anymore, but, they were just salt of the earth people. My dad left this earth without an enemy.
That's great.
So it a lot of those characteristics got
values,
instilled
for sure.
in me and my siblings. So very fortunate. We had everything we needed growing up, but baseball was my sport. Golf. We were members at the University Club, which is NC State's little faculty club, if you will, right off the belt line there.
Mm-hmm.
It has a 9-hole par 3 course.
Okay.
And that's really where I grew up playing. But, Mom would drop us off, when we were little kids.
Long before the cradle.
Long before the cradle, yeah. In fact, I think it's only 6 holes now. They took so much. I think they took 3 of the holes away to build more tennis courts or pickleball courts or something over there. Pickleball, taking over as well. But very, very fortunate. That's really where I kind of learned how to play golf was there. But again, baseball is my sport. Baseball and golf were in the same season here in North Carolina in the spring. So, I couldn't try to do both of them. But I was fortunate to go to Campbell University. Well, I should give a shout out to my Broughton Cats. That's where I went to high school.
There you go.
We had a really good team my senior year, but I had a chance to go to, to Campbell. Other opportunities to play at other schools, NC State, East Carolina. I could have walked on to some of those places, but Campbell just it was close enough to home. It was Division I, and so I figured, well, great business school, but has a golf course too.
Keith Hills,
and still one of my.
They host quite a few qualifiers and tournaments for CGA.
They do, and the Carolinian Amateur that we have in May each year, the old Keith Hills Amateur.
Yeah,
so we've kept that event going and grown it. It's crazy how that event has evolved into what it is now. But so really, was at school. We would play. Obviously during baseball season and fall practice and spring we couldn't play, but before fall practice and after fall practice, we were out there quite a bit, and just always fell in love with the game, and and kind of how I ended up getting into golf was, I stayed in grad school, so I graduated, went to MBA there, and was a grad assistant for operations in athletic department, and still didn't quite know what I wanted to do. Thought I wanted to be a college athletic director, and college sports was kind of where I was trending. Thankfully, I didn't go that route, especially nowadays.
Getting into NIL, what a mess.
It is a mess, but there's some smart people to hopefully get all that figured out.
Yep.
But I went to Coach John Crooks, at the longtime Campbell's men's and women's golf coach, and I said, Coach, I love operations. I really love golf. Is there anything in the industry that you can see where that might be a good fit? And he had a piece of paper on his desk and slid it over to me and said, you might want to check into this. And it was an internship for the Carolinas Golf Association. And I had no idea what the CGA was, what it did, where it was. And, lo and behold, I was born, our office was in Seven Lakes. And
yeah, that's right.
And, so I get this and I look at it and I'm like, this is pretty interesting. So I tell my parents, like, okay, so here I am, 24. I got an MBA. They think I should be working in some, high rise downtown Raleigh in a suit and, doing all that. And I said, you know what? Let me look into this and check it out. And I said, look, it's only for summer. If it doesn't work out, I'll get into the real world, if you will. And thankfully, Ray Nowicki, who was a longtime tournament director for the CGA, he actually hired me. He was the one that really gave me my start in the business. And about a week, into the internship, I was like, this is what I want to do.
Wow.
And been very fortunate. It's been a 28-year run to get to this point. So it's pretty cool. A lot of great people, a lot of great places. It's just somewhat of a dream come true for me.
When you got started in the late 90s with the CGA, and it was in Seven Lakes before they built a beautiful facility across from Pine Needles, in between Pine Needles and Mid Pines there. Talk about what that experience was like. You said you fell in love with it. So what was the CGA like back in the late 90s when Jack was, 20 years into it, but, running the ship at that time?
everybody would go to everything. So it was like, smaller team. I think I might have been, there was 2 new hires that year. Becky Hyman and myself started January 2nd of 2000. And I think we were full-time employees 8 and 9. And, so back then when we ran tournaments, we'd pretty much load up into a station wagon or a minivan, and we'd all go pretty much to every event. We didn't have 360 tournaments back then. We still had quite a a volume,
but a lot for that amount of people on staff.
It was a lot.
A lot of weekends.
A lot of weekends. A lot of we were just getting our Tar Heel Youth Golf Association off the ground. Back then, the internet was just taking off, and so it was really an interesting change in a lot of different ways for the industry. But it was a smaller team, kind of all hands on deck. You'd have a lead for events, and I remember in early days, I'd maybe go run, I don't know, a qualifier, and people are like, well, where's Jack? Well, where's Ray? And and so. Now people at times are like, well, where's Andy? So it's kind of interesting how things have kind of come full circle a little bit.
Talk about the opportunity to go down to Alabama. You were down there from 2015 to 2024. Talk about leaving the CGA. Was it a tough decision, or do you just saw an opportunity to be executive director and kind of build a program for yourself?
It was a very tough decision. It's impacted not only myself but my wife, as I mentioned earlier, and you're going somewhere you didn't. I'd been to Birmingham once in my life. When I was at Campbell, we played at Sanford in college, and so that was the only time I'd ever been to Birmingham. And what I remembered, it was hilly and nice city. But when I went down there for a job interview, I really didn't remember until I got there how it's almost this is the foot of the Appalachian Mountains. So there's a lot of elevation change there, and it's really a beautiful little city. UAB is right downtown, and Sanford's just over the mountain there, and but to go to Alabama, it's really it was an opportunity to see what I could do, and stand on my own 2 legs, take an organization. Some parallels too. When I went to the AGA, I replaced a 30+ year executive director there, Buford McCarty. So kind of similar here. And I come back here, take over for Jack. He'd been executive director for 30+ years, here for 40 years. So there's some parallels, definitely different dynamics. Just relationships, personalities involved. Jack and I are very close. Buford and I didn't really know each other at all. But also a big piece of the Alabama job was the Southern Golf Association and running the Southern Amateur Championship, which is one of the top men's events in the world, and the Southern Junior. So really, it gave me a chance to not only run an Allied Golf Association, but also I could still kind of keep my tournament director hat on a little bit and take, the Southern Amateur was already a great event, but we took it even further. And my last year, it was probably the 4th strongest field in the world. Wow. So it's proud of what we did there.
Very prestigious event, yeah,
it is. And Country Club North Carolina here in Pinehurst is an anchor site for the Southern Amateur, and it'll be here in 2027 in a couple years. So a lot of it's just a lot of crossover, a lot of tie-ins. But just very proud. Had a great staff down there. With smaller team. Going back, kind of, we talked about the CGA in my early days. That's how Alabama is. We had full-time staff of 7. Kind of had to go together to a lot of events, even though we started growing and doing multiple events concurrently. But at the core of it, there would still be hey, 4 or 5 of us would go to each event and try to get it done.
You mentioned this Southern Amateur. What are some of the other things in Alabama that you got done that you felt good about when you left it? Like, hey, you left a lasting legacy for that person to take over for you and build it even further.
I would say we started a junior golf program, which we didn't have. It was, we ran the state junior boys and state junior girls, and we helped with the state high school championships. That was it. That was all we did. So we started, junior rankings. We started a Junior Golf Alabama program, which was a partnership with the Alabama Northwest Florida PGA section. Really we wanted to have a competition component to it, but also a teaching the pathway for a youngster that wants to get interested in golf to playing competitive golf. So we work with them and create camps and try to help gear more public golfers to have the opportunities to play and get engaged in the game. So we're proud of getting that program and growing it from nothing to what it's turning into today. Certainly seeing the growth in our staff, growth in our membership. I think we were the little engine that could down there, and I think we got a lot accomplished with a fairly small staff. So incredibly proud. Miss that group. They're wonderful people, hardworking, dedicated, just like our team here at the CGA as well. And it's just great to be back home though.
Okay, I got to ask you down there. I know you're a Campbell guy, and I grew up in Raleigh and it's NC State, but down there, man, you're either War Eagle or Roll Tide.
Yeah.
So which were you down there as a casual fan, maybe?
You know what? I'll say two things on that. One, I think the statute of limitations is 10 years before you do have to declare a side. And I figured out as executive director of the AGA, it probably was better off not committing to one side or the other.
And you were there 9 years, so you didn't have to.
I was there, so I got just out. I left just before the threshold, but this is a true story. The first event I went to before I started as executive, I went down for a little, for a couple weeks to just meet staff, went to a couple of events. Well, one of the events was the Alabama Women's Floorball Championship. And they had a dinner the night before the first round, and they introduced me, and I got to say a few words and to say hello. And one of the participants, a lady, stood up. She raised her hand. She said, "Andy, I got a question for you." And she stood up. She said, "All right, welcome to Alabama. You're going to be Roll Tide or War Eagle?" and true story. So I said, "Hey, I'm an ACC guy. I back the pack." So
right, there you go.
I was able to.
Good answer.
Yeah, I was able to kind of stay out of the fray on it. But it is they love their college sports down there. The SEC conferences based in Birmingham. Got to be really close with some of their staff and. In fact, I still run their SEC.
I was going to say you ran the championship.
Yeah. So I still do that and brought that with me here to the CGA, and so it's really great group. But you're right, they love their college sports down there, and it's probably more Alabama than Auburn when it comes to the what you see between the two schools, but they certainly are all
I tell
in.
you what, and I hear you because I spent most of my career in North Carolina, Virginia, but spent some time down in Destin, Florida, and you learn very quickly that is SEC football territory. There is nothing else that matters, and actually in Northwest Florida, there it's kind of southern Alabama. So, but it was a fun time to be down there, and they were very passionate about their football, as you know. You've had a chance too to work in the Masters. Talk about how you got involved with that.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate, going back the Augusta National Women's Amateur. It's been...
I went to the first one. It was an amazing experience. And they only sold about 10,000 tickets. Now it's like, it's packed. So it was really cool. Very intimate setting there, that very first event.
It was. And, I've been very fortunate to officiate all six of them. Jim Heiler, who's a local here, Mr. Heiler, I tell him as long as he needs me, I'll be there. And, so I helped them with that. But in 2023, they must have had a withdrawal or something because I get a call from Augusta, from Brett Sturba, who's their tournament director, manages a lot of the rules committee stuff. And, he called me and said, "Hey, after ANWA, are you available the next week as well?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Well, we'd like for you to stay and officiate the Masters as well." And I think I went radio silent for kind of like, wait a minute, what did you just ask me to officiate the Masters tournament? And look, it was the greatest week. I call it the pinnacle of my officiating career. I've been fortunate to do a lot of events, but the Masters tournament that week, it was just special. You know, my wife really loved it because she got access to the clubhouse, and
oh wow, yeah,
so it's a nice perk for her, and I got to take some friends to practice rounds, and so it was really just wonderful. You know, it's a different arena to be in. You know, when you're in the Masters, you know, obviously you got Augusta National and everything that goes on with that, but you know, just the pressure of, you know, a major championship golf. You know, I have worked the U.S. Open as well. But you know, the Masters tournament it's just a different deal on so many levels, and you know, definitely a career bucket list thing for me to have checked off.
It's a magical place, man. I tell people. I remember the first time I was there. I've been there, lucky enough to be there about 10 times. And they used to have ambassadors who used to wear hard hats. And there was a guy I met from Mississippi. He would come every year, take vacation because he got to play at Augusta National after it was over. And he told me, he said, walk anywhere in the property, even along the fence line. If you find a weed, I'll give you $100. I looked all day and found nothing. It was just like God just laid out this perfect green carpet, and it's just pristine. I mean, it's for people who have not been there. Just talk about how how special that place is.
The words can't describe it. You know, you got to go see it. You know, the elevation change. I think that's the first
TV just
thing.
doesn't do it justice.
TV does not do it justice. That's usually the first comment I ever hear from folks that have been there for the first time. Like, wow, we didn't realize how hilly it is, because you know the clubhouse is at the really number one green is the high point of the property, and it all falls downhill to Rays Creek and Amen Corner down there, and you know, so going down is the easy part. When you get down there, you know, 11 green, 12, 13, you look back up the hill, you're like, that's a pretty good hike back.
It is a hike. It is a workout for sure. It
is. You better wear comfortable shoes if you get the chance to go to Augusta National.
So you come back to your home, to the Home American Golf. You've been there since January 1st, so you've had about half a year or 6 months to kind of get your feet back stable with the CGA. Talk about what that first 6 months back at the CGA has been like.
It's been obviously busy. We had some staffing departures over time. You know, there were some holes we had to fill even before I got here, and you know, we kind of deferred, especially in our media and marketing and communications department. So we've been working to rebuild that team here. So a lot of it's been really just kind of working inside out, I guess is the best way to phrase it. You know, we've got we're back. We'll be fully staffed in July. We have one more full-time staff member that she'll join us right before July 4th. She's finishing a long-term internship with the USGA, so she's gonna work through the Senior Open and then come join us. But once she joins us, we'll be back fully staffed at that point, and then we'll see what the future holds. Because we're going through a strategic plan process this year, and that was part of the discussions when I got hired.
Yeah.
And Jack did a phenomenal job taking us to where we are today. So now it's like, okay, we got new leadership, the new old guy coming back, and and then all right, what do we want to do? Focus on for the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's really kind of what we're working on as we speak.
What are maybe some of those like 3 to 5 things that you don't want to? You got big shoes to fill, but I mean, obviously you have some ideas of where you want to take this organization. What are maybe some of the top things that you want to try to get accomplished short term and then maybe long term?
Yeah, I would say, probably the biggest opportunity for us is on our foundation work. We've, Carolina's Golf Foundation, we do a lot of good things, support a lot of programs that are already out there. There's some people just doing incredible work, Swing Pals up in Durham, in city schools. We've got some adaptive golf programs in South Carolina. All the First Tee programs are around the Carolinas.
They're building a big one up in Cameron. They're going to be building
exactly.
over there.
Courtney and team are building one right down the road from here, and so we feel like we're in a important position to help support. Because we can't do everything internally, so we want to be great at what we do, but we want to make sure that we invest back into the game, and we need an army to do that in different things, whether it's in agronomy, research, Greenskeeper Apprentice Program that we partner with the USGA on. We have the U.S. National Development Team programs that are coming online next year for Team North Carolina, Team South Carolina. We have our Youth on Course program that continues to grow and grow and grow, and it's going to take more and more and more, revenue to keep that program viable and going. We do partner with Harold Varner III's foundation on that HV3 foundation with our Youth on Course program. So we really appreciate what Harold does for us. So I would say for me the foundation work is call it low hanging fruit. Yeah. But we'll kind of see where things fall out of the strategic plan. On the marketing communication side, we want to keep driving membership growth. Nationally, the USGA is Drive to 5. It's kind of the word, and we want to get 5 million handicap index golfers in the country, and right now we're at about 3.4 to 5 million. So we got a ways to go, and we here at the CGA know we've got a ton of growth opportunity here. Even though we're the second largest in the country, behind Florida. Florida's is its own animal down there. They have 350,000 plus members. We're at as of Monday, we're about 226,000 here. But there's no reason why we can't get to 300,000. Yeah. There's a lot of golfers already in the Carolinas. There's people moving to the Carolinas every day that are golfers. We're just very blessed and fortunate to have so many great areas. Here, we live in the home of American golf right here. But you just think about what we have in the Carolinas as a whole. So we really want to focus on Carolinas. Drive tourism within the Carolinas. We want to focus on Carolinas. We want to storytell the Carolinas. That's our job. So I think there's going to be a little bit of movement in that world as well, whether it's through the magazine or Carolinas Golf Magazine. Online, we want to become a little more storytelling. Yeah. We have unlimited.
I think Jackson Zveen's on your team, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So Jackson, so we got Jackson, Josh, Stevie just joined our team as well. So we've got the nucleus of the future for us in place, and now we just hired we had an army of interns that we talked about before we came on the air. We got 8 USGA boat ride interns that just started a couple weeks ago. 4 of them are in media. 4 of them are over in tournament operations, and we have a 5th media intern. She's going to join us in July as well. So it's, there's
all the help you can get.
There's a lot of, we have 5 championships this week, going on throughout the Carolinas. So, there's just a lot going on, and it does take a village to really pull it all together to do what we do, especially this time of year.
I think some people may not be familiar with your location. We mentioned it's in Golf House right there at Pine Needles, right across the street. I think what's really cool about that facility, because you always hear about the World Golf Hall of Fame, which has come back to its rightful place in an original home in Pinehurst. But talk about the Hall of History there, because I think it's really cool. It's free and open to the public. If you go over there, right there by Pine Needles across the street, you could walk in, and just an amazing showcase of great Carolinas golf history.
It is, and you're right. It's right at the top of the hill. People say, all right, we're across the street from Pine Needles. Well, then they think it's over at Mid Pines. So, well, not that street.
You're right.
It's actually Ridge Road right there.
Right.
So when you turn to go down into the, the lodge and golf course part of the Pine Needles, we're right at
there.
The top of the hill.
You can't miss the logo. It's a big sign with the Carolinas Golf Association logo.
That's right. The big lollipop sign. That's what we call it out front. But you're right. It's, it was... When I was here previously, I was in the building for a year before I went to Alabama, but phase 1 was the actual building and getting the offices and the staff in there. Phase 2 was the Hall of History. So I wasn't here when that all came to life, and kudos to Jack. That was his vision. Golf House was his vision anyway, but certainly the Hall of History. He is huge on preserving the history, as I am as well. We've got a great history as an organization, and we should
Absolutely.
celebrate it.
Yeah.
Especially all the partner associations that we work with currently, or even over time we've had other organizations merge in with us. The Women's Carolinas Golf Association, North Carolina Women's Golf Association. Groups that have just did incredible work for so many years, especially as volunteers. But as the game grown and is modernized, it just takes a little bit more. And so we've onboarded some of those groups into ours, and now taking over and conducting those events. And we have a couple great partnerships in South Carolina with the South Carolina Golf Association, Women's South Carolina, that we work with there as well. But in the Hall of History, we've got wide hallways. They're chock full of, you name it. I mean, really, right outside my office is kind of the starting point, if you will, kind of where golf in the Carolinas started. And you kind of just walk down the hallway, and it's almost a little bit of a timeline. Yeah. And then you get into what we call the real Hall of History, the big room that we have on the east side of the building, that's really got all of our displays, our trophies, some really cool, like Peggy Kirk Bell, we have a locker for her, Harvey Ward, so you think about the great Carolinians, clubs from, some of our most accomplished players, and what they've done and celebrated, just different parts of the game, not just competitions, but whether it's in administration. I'm in a long line of esteemed. It's almost like I can't believe my name is in line with PJ Boatwright and Clyde Mangum and Hale Van Hoy and Jack Nance, and to lead the CGA, and it's like this doesn't seem real. And so we try and celebrate everything that we do across the board. We even Jim Nance from CBS Sports, we have one of his blazers in there because Jim was actually born right outside Charlotte. So there's a lot of things there. Or Curtis Cup players and past USGA champions.
And we're just talking about Carolina's golf.
This history. Is just Carolinas. You can go to the USGA, right. See the hall, their
it's
USGA
a great
experience.
Spot, for sure.
It sure is. And their Hall of Fame upstairs is well done with the lockers. And, so we have a few pieces of that in our building, but it's really focused on the Carolinas, as it should be.
As we wrap things up, you talked about growing the CGA membership. Talk about, I'm a member, have been for many years. Actually got this qualifying for a senior event, so I really feel special. I have this vest.
I don't even have that one.
I was like, Jack said, hey, you get this too? And I was like, oh, wow, cool. All right. Then I played like crap in the championship. So it was cool to make the event. But if anybody wants to join the CGA, talk about how they can do that.
Yeah, you just go to carolinasgolf.org. And we have a link right there. There's really two ways. You'll see the U.S. Open this week. A lot of ads that the USGA will put on. Get a handicap index. So there's you can actually join us through the USGA website as well. Put your zip code in, it'll pop up Carolinas Golf Association.
Yeah, you get the GIN app on your phone. It's easy to punch in your scores.
That's right.
It's great.
You get the GIN app. So it depends on which way you want to come in. Either way, you're going to become a member of the CGA and get all the benefits, whether it's tournaments, handicap index, your stat tracking, GPS, and the app. We do international trips, discounts, functions, all kinds of things. So there's more to being a member of the CGA than just tournament golf. Mm-hmm.
Well, man, it's been a pleasure to meet you, Andy. Congratulations on the appointment. Big shoes to fill with Jack Nance, but you're more than capable. Looking forward to all your work you're going to do. If we can help in any way, shape, or form, please let us know here at the Home of American Golf.
Yeah, and same here. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you very much. Well, if you want to learn more about tourism in Moore County, go to our website, homeofgolf.com. If you want to see more about our videos, including this podcast, go to our YouTube channel, which is Home of American Golf. This has been Paradise in the Pines, and we'll see you next time.